What does it mean to be the next something? Every piece of art, regardless of subjective quality, is worthy in its own right, to the point where calling something the next blank can even be a bit disrespectful. That being said, this is YouTube, and we thrive off comparisons like that. I say this all to say that I don't take this comparison lightly because of the above stated reason, but also for the immense amount of respect and admiration I have for Puella Magi Madoka Magica, also known as Mahou Shoujo Magical Magica. Not only is it my fourth favorite anime in an admittedly unupdated list, but what it did for the anime community cannot be overstated. It revolutionized what visual storytelling can be, while also doing the same for thematic storytelling. I've never seen an anime be more about something than Madoka Magica, aside from Kill La Kill, but the former streamlines it to avoid the messiness that can sometimes drag down the plot of even a seminal show like Kill La Kill. It's perfect thematic storytelling, and I don't think there's any other way to state it. But it didn't always start out that way. The first two episodes are infamously much different and to some much more boring than episode 3 onwards. And while I still enjoyed the first two for their excellent atmosphere, music, and especially visual design, even I'll admit the plot was rather lacking to properly convey to an adult audience that isn't already prone to enjoying magical girl shows. This is similar in nature to the subject of today's video, Mahou Shoujo Magical Destroyers, currently rated below a 7 on Mail at the time of this writing. Yep, I just checked, it's at a 6.82 right now. And this is understandable, given that while I still enjoy it for its characters and Gainaxi elements, the plot is too zany to appeal to a wider audience. And it very well might stay that way and continue trekking on a wild journey about otakus and magical girls fighting the government. But many have noticed a few cracks in that seeming facade that may very well point towards a larger picture we aren't yet privy to. So today, friends, that is the journey we are embarking on, to analyze and break down the things the community has noticed and some specific observations I've made that may just blow the lid off this whole game. So, are you ready? Because if so, I think it's time we dive headfirst into Mahou Shoujo Magical Destroyers. As of episode 2, the three magical girls are all back together, with Pink-chan joining Blue-chan and Anarchy in the fight alongside Otaku Hero. But this is a bit weird, isn't it? The government says if all three get together, then their plans may very well fail, but that seems like a late game development, not something for episode 2. The plot just seems extremely rushed, but the previously mentioned line makes it seem intentional. I mean, where do they go from here? There could very well be more conventional twists and turns upcoming, filling the plot up with 12 episodes of runtime, or, alternatively, this leaves room for a major, series upending plot twist like seen in Puella Magi Madoka Magica. This alone wouldn't prove it'll probably happen, but there are several more clues hidden in the show. And especially in perhaps the most talked about aspect of it, its fantastic OP and ED. Let's talk about the opening first. In the series, Otaku Hero is pretty beloved by the magical girls. He's not only the leader of the group, but is the one who inspires them, who brings them all together. He is the glue. And yet, in these opening shots, he's chasing after them blindly. They blissfully ignore him, something that makes the actual series seem like a jumbled mess of wish fulfillment fantasies. And then we get the blue fish. While this is purely conjecture on my part, I believe this resembles the infamous blue pill from the Matrix. When Otaku Hero eats the blue fish, he is staying within the fantasy, making the deliberate choice to do so. However, as we see a few seconds later, he is forced to spit it back up, with the TV man holding the glass. This man is seemingly in charge of the government, and for me this is foreshadowing towards a future event where these antagonists will wake Otaku Hero up from the fantasy. To what world he'll end up in after this, we'll discuss in a bit, but I don't believe any of this imagery is accidentally placed there. No, my friends, I believe it is all intentional. Otaku Hero rejects this notion, however, punching the TV man in an act of raw defiance. But before that, we see Anarchy eat a fruit, perhaps a forbidden fruit in this otaku paradise, another bit of foreshadowing, as well as the girls drowning as they transform, perhaps alluding to them drowning in the fantasy. That part is probably a bit of a stretch though. After the title card, an otaku hero grabbing Anarchy, Blue-chan, and Pink-chan, either saving them or more likely trying desperately to hold on to the fantasy. The song, now kinda infamously, takes a turn for the weird, and the opening devolves into a lot of different abstract imagery. It's as if the fantasy is falling apart as otaku hero can't hold on. He is drowning. They are drowning. He tries to dive deeper, and what he finds there is strange. Bizarre even. This isn't what he wanted. Or perhaps it is. And this is just what lies at the end of the otaku's journey. Abstract sexual imagery, anime girls being displaceable and interchangeable as if they, each different anime series, are mere faceplates. All the while the TV man watches, almost knowingly, at this entire sad spectacle. And then we have the ending. The otaku hero becoming the Christ Savior. Seriously, the way this mirrors The Last Supper is almost uncanny. It is the pinnacle of wish fulfillment. The conclusion of the girl meets boy storyline seen in so much anime. He saves them. He is their savior. He is the otaku hero. This calls back to Anarchy eating the forbidden fruit. And in becoming the Christ figure, he is able to stay in this otaku paradise seemingly forever. But of course, the TV man is still there, watching, probably waiting for this all to fall apart. As you saw with the blue fish being spit out into a glass he was holding, it seems he is really in control here. I believe this series is going to come to the point where the illusion is broken, where the entire fantasy crumbles around Otaku Hero's world. To conclude this thought, we have the only words in the opening that probably means much of anything besides the primal instinct of destruction. I want to wake up from recurring dreams. The ED is just as fascinating as the OP, with the words starting off the song, I see her smile when I close my eyes. I guess I'll sleep, so that I can see her in my dreams. In my dreams, huh? We then have them literally feeding him as his body is essentially comatose in a hospital bed. This is translated beautifully through the slow, stilted, limited animation that juxtaposes the fluid, sakuga-filled animation of the rest of the show. It's as if his body hardly works anymore, as he watches anime all day, being fed the same fantastical delusion as he lays. But this world is dead, as the ground is littered with anime girls, all clad in stereotypical over-sexualized outfits. There is nothing left here, and perhaps there is nothing even here to begin with. And then we have this image, perhaps the epitome of otaku wish fulfillment, where otaku hero is once again shown as, well, the otaku hero. I'm glad to see the Christ-like imagery carrying over from the opening, because it really fits here. But this is taken even further with the angelic imagery of the core three magical girls, as if they're also coming to save otaku hero just as he saved them in the opening. I'm reminded of Dante's Divine Comedy, and of Beatrice in particular. She was depicted as an angelic figure in Purgatorio and Paradiso, being a heavenly figure who saves Dante. She was based on a real person who served as Dante's muse for the entire Divine Comedy. He thought she would save him from hellish earth and obsessed over her, so much so that he literally made her an angelic savior in his own poem. In essence, she is one of the first examples of the dream girl, the mother of the manic pixie dream girl. This is reflected in the ED, although whether this is based around a real girl in otaku hero's actual life as the lyrics would suggest, or is just about and centered around anime girls in general is yet to be seen. But the parallels are breathtaking to say the least. The ED is ended with the apparent death of the otaku hero, itself probably symbolizing the end of the fantasy and dream. Or perhaps the entire anime is a coma dream. But I don't like that last interpretation, as it probably wouldn't really comment on the medium and otaku culture as a whole very much. But I hope I've made it clear how both the opening and the ending are a reflection of wish fulfillment, especially the ED, and how they show it both intensifying and probably breaking down, shattering the illusion of otaku hero as the Christ figure. In episode 2, there's a very curious line about 18 minutes and 8 seconds in or so. It goes along the lines of, we won't lose, and then we'll turn back into normal girls. And the usual normal assumption here is that they will be able to just like the things they like again. But when asked what she meant by it, Anarchy just isn't sure. And to me, this symbolizes again them being depicted as angelic figures, and how they want to return back to normal. whether that be girls in real life or the representation of hundreds if not thousands of different anime girls. Okay, I didn't know where else to add this, but everyone has been hyping up the creator of the series, which further makes it seem like we're truly in for something special. It's also been pointed out to me by some of my own community that the staff of this anime is pretty stacked. And while that could just be for a more straightforward show, it could also point to this anime being the next Madoka Magica. Okay, one last thing to add, I promise. But after watching episode 3 in the middle of me doing this voiceover, I've come to the conclusion that the villainous magical girl we see is definitely some kind of mirrored version of Anarchy, and that we'll probably be getting a mirrored version of all 3 of the girls. This can mean a lot of things, but I think it comes down to the displaceable aspect of anime I was talking about earlier in the OP section, and how his fantasy is full to the brim with different interchangeable anime girls. Alright, that was just one last thing I wanted to add as its own section. Time to make some assumptions. To like what you like. This entire anime series seems to be the fantasy of otaku hero, who fancies himself a Christ figure, who will save all the other otakus from a perceived persecution. I imagine this fantasy, well, I think it'll be forcibly ripped out of it by some outside circumstances, and that things will come crashing down with possibly even the death of one, if not all, of the magical girls. This would, of course, be similar to Madoka Magica. I want you to imagine this scenario. You're an otaku, and yet nobody understands you. They just don't get that it's okay to like whatever you want. You hope and wish for the day that such a reality will come to fruition, but everyone else fights against it. Why can't they just understand? You dream of fighting back against them, becoming a hero for the unspoken and unrepresented masses. And once you do, you're hooked. You live in that fantasy. You eat in that fantasy. You breathe in that fantasy. You walk in that fantasy. And most importantly, you fight back in that fantasy. With your girls by your side, there's nothing and nobody that can stop you. However, in the back of your mind, something nags at you, trying to constantly wake you up. And you're not sure what it is, but you wish it would just go away. Perhaps it's a family member or a friend or an idea. You're not sure. But as long as you ignore it, things should stay as they are, right? This is the story I believe Magical Destroyers is ultimately trying to tell. Or at least something along those lines. Perhaps the twist will be the very TV station running anime represented by the TV man turns against otakus all around the world. But who can really say? We're still so early on. This anime could just be a Gainaxy adventure packed with action, and I'd still enjoy it. But I'm making this video for the slightest chance that it could end up being more. The Mahou Shoujo Magical Destroyers could end up being the next Puella Magi Madoka Magica. Welcome back to the end of the video. As always, I hope you're doing swell. Not much to say on this one except that I'm hard at work about that Vinland Saga video entitled Vinland Saga, or How Love is Death, and that once to watch for this anime season titled the Spring 2023 Anime Essentials List. I sincerely hope you will enjoy them when they come out. I also will be releasing my horror short film Squid Boy one of these days. Who really knows when at this point? If you're struggling, just keep on chugging along. I think we all are in some way. We can all do this together. I know we can. And, as always, thank you for watching.